I was just gonna ask, I'm keen to ask what your first investment was. Because I know you've had a
I
lot of good experience, but
I had an interest. I had I suppose a different. I had the opposite of what you described. So from a young age, I was taught to value money. And like when I wanted something, a new pair of trainers or whatever it might have been, I'd always like go halves or save up the money or do some work for it or whatever it might be. So I've always valued money in the sense that I appreciate it. I've never made it any bigger or smaller than it needs to be at that point in time. Doesn't mean that it was the right way of thinking at that, but it was just that was how I was thinking at that point in time. And I remember like buying and selling little skateboards and Pokemon cards and at school, importing them from Turkey and all sorts of stuff. And I was always into
amazing.
certain things from an entrepreneurial perspective. And then, so that was it investing? Maybe we'll see. And then
Mhm.
I suppose really from 16, I was always saving for something. I was saving up to go traveling, so I wasn't investing in stuff. I was investing in like trips away. So I traveled for 5 months and then came back and went to university. And you know, I suppose my first real investment was pension, which I haven't done
Mm.
anything with since. It was standard thing when I was in employment, pension. And then and then I think I found crypto. There's nothing in
Mm.
between
Mhm.
a, a pension and then sort of a low interest rate ISA that just run of the mill high street thing. And then in 2017 I found crypto, and that was had I just bought Bitcoin and held it, be a very different situation to now. But I got suckered into a Ponzi scheme and lost probably a few grand, I'd say a few grand.
Mhm.
And that was the start of my journey. Stocks, shares, ETFs, funds, crypto. But crypto sort of led the way in terms of the direction of which I was going, and obviously now ended up in more full time than anything else. So yeah, but I did the university route, so I didn't really have any money at university as such. But I wasn't investing, but I saw, like, I was the other side. I saw my friends that were electricians and painter and decorators and plumbers and things like that with the money buying houses and buying vans and getting married and having children, and I was in Ibiza having a great time. So it's just a different side, and it made me think when you said that. I thought, would I change it? Because I see all these young crypto millionaires now in Dubai, obviously like living in Dubai, and you see it, and I think, are they missing anything? I don't know, because I wouldn't change the past, but I would really
Mhm.
appreciate the education then, because
Yeah.
somebody just said to me at 18, 19, if you start saving just 10, 15% of your money, you could be retired at 40, 45. If you really do this properly. But no one
Mhm.
does. They just,
Yeah.
because no one's
The most
there.
frustrating bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People,
Yeah.
what I saw at that age was people putting money into pensions and getting ripped off. I think my
Yeah.
dad
Yeah. Yeah.
got some money in an endowment. That they signed up to an endowment or a mortgage and it got wiped out. And my mum's pension age got put up 6 years. So I'm thinking, hang on a minute, all this money is going to somewhere that you may never see.
Yeah.
So I
For
thought, well, I
sure.
may as well spend it. If I'm
Yeah.
not put it into something, I may as well spend it on something. And that, I suppose,
Mhm.
that may have held me back, but it's always pushed me away from the norm. Put your money into something that you may never
Yeah.
see. And obviously my dad passed away
Mhm.
at 69, so he got a few years of his state pension. So he paid in
Okay.
for 40 years and never saw any of it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm in this stage now of, well, I want my money to work for me rather than me lock it up for 10, 15, 30, 40, 50 years and I might never see it. So yeah, it's been interesting. I think it's brought me to obviously this
Mm.
point, but yeah, there's been lots of little things along the way. And my mum and dad did a really great job of saving up money and paying their mortgage off. Their goal was always pay the mortgage off and get debt free. which is great. It's great for my mum now,
Mm-hmm.
and that's that safety and security. So it's nice to have some safety and security, but I'm very risk on. For anyone listening who doesn't risk on, I'm all in on risk with my spare money,
Yep.
disposable money. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Does that answer does that give you an inkling of why we end up like we end up?
Yeah, definitely. There were a couple of interesting points you actually said around there. So you talked about like the mindset with like investing and traveling,
Mm,
things like that, which I think is maybe not set aside, but it's not something necessarily a lot of people think about. They're like, oh, why would you want to go traveling? It's like it's still an investment, but you can get like it's an investment of like memories, experience, the growth, and
yeah.
that as well. So I love that. The other thing you just said about sort of not like being the norm, I completely on side with as well. So I think I was in, or still am to an extent, in like the minority, in terms of the whole, oh, going down that path of like buying a house, getting married,
Mm,
having kids, getting a dog. Love dogs, nothing against
mm,
dogs, but it's the whole sort of path that society sort of carves out, isn't it? And it ties in and links in with the pensions point as well. It's like, oh, I mean, I said I was all about saving money, but and I was when I started my journey, but pensions is slightly different in terms of like, oh, it's like put it in a pot, and then as you say, it's like, will you see it? When will you see it? Will it decrease? What will happen to it? Will you lose
mm,
it? There's so many different factors that come into that, which I won't go into just now. But
mm.
coming back to the point of society kind of carves out this path and you should follow it. And if you're in a minority, well, that's you're either crazy or that's very risky and things. And I just think there's much more not to life as such, but you can make it that way. Instead of going down the path of everyone else and following the herd, there's so much more you can create for yourself, or there's so many different ways you can look at it now, which I think a lot more people are becoming wise to, but there's still I'm still going to class it as a minority from my experience. So I love
Yeah,
that you picked that out as well.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
yeah, something I
yeah.
agree with too.